Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of VISTV. Today, I am super excited to introduce to you Sara Falco, the Senior Vice President of Operations for Viscardi. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Joan. Happy to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Sara and I go back. We have a very long history working together, and it has been a great adventure, I think. There's been a lot of ups and downs, needless to say, in running any company. But I'm happy to have Sara here today to talk about our continued conversations on motivational leadership, how to lead during a pandemic, anything you want to talk about, Sara, about technology or remote work. So let's get started. Talk to me first and foremost. And I know this might be tough as your employer to speak freely, but please speak as freely as you can about leading. How has it been leading a company? You can talk about and focus on the pandemic or not. That's up to you.
I feel that's a tough question to go right into, but okay. I would say the most challenging part about leading during pandemic is that there's no real playbook to go by. I feel like all companies and all leaders really had to start from scratch with what the best way was to navigate these waters, especially not knowing how long it was going to last. I'm pretty sure in the beginning in March, nobody expected us to still be here at this time where we are, still wearing masks, still waiting to be vaccinated, still quarantining. So that's been the biggest challenge, I feel.
Yeah, I would agree with you. What in the conversations I've had with other leaders, which range from small companies to very large companies, the last interview was with Glenn Feminella. We talked a lot about motivating employees. Do you find it harder to motivate employees during the pandemic when they're working remotely and not in an office setting?
What's been interesting is some employees have really risen to the situation, and I think it's been eye-opening to see which employees really want to dive in and help wherever they can and almost thrive in working from home full time and the uncertainty of each week, and other employees that perhaps you thought might need a little bit more, might get a little more from, they were the ones that really needed more motivation. I think a lot of people have a hard time working from home, and other people actually do pretty well with it. I know for myself, the most difficult part has been having kids and being a mom still while working from home. So I think the best part for being a leader is being able to support people in the different challenges they have working from home.
I would definitely have to agree with you. You know, I'm the opposite. I love being surrounded by, not opposite of you, but opposite of some of our employees. I love being surrounded by people and motivated by the conversations that happen, the brainstorming. So this has been tough for me. I know as a company focus in our company and a culture that we've created is to create a safe environment and hopefully a mentally motivating environment that people feel they can express their stress. Can you talk a little bit about and let everybody know the things we're doing in the office that help in those situations?
Well, we have been having a weekly Zoom check-in company meeting with everyone, which I think helps to bring everybody together, where some people talk on a day-to-day basis, just in the normal happenings of their job description. There's other employees that don't really get to have that interaction like they would have had in the office. So I think that's important to make sure everybody still forms a cohesive time that they can all come together. We've also been providing mental health time off. So just a few half days here and there that people can take just to do what they need to do, just take a walk, sit and watch Netflix, whatever's easiest for them or makes them happy.
Gotta watch some of those series though. I've been watching Outlander, not Outlander, Ozark. I've been watching Ozark, and a half day off would never help. I would need like a whole week to binge through that show.
Right,
Do you
but
find
I feel like Joan especially, you have done a great job with trying to keep in touch with everybody's mental health and making sure everybody has the time that they need to take to be with their family or just with themselves, and know that we're there for them and understand, and we are very forgiving depending on what their situation is at the time. If someone's late to a meeting or having tech issues, we're understanding of that.
Yeah, I want to speak to that, the tech issues and the remote work. Back when I began doing interviews, I spoke with a woman who works for a very, very large corporation, and they were not prepared for the transfer over to remote work. So I really want to commend you, because we had that in place in part already. People were working a hybrid work situation. Did you find any complexities in that when the whole office had to go over? Because to my view, you made it look very smooth and seamless. But did you feel any real problems with that?
Thank you for feeling that it was seamless. I think it helped that so many of our employees already worked somewhat of a hybrid schedule. So even before the pandemic, we would allow people to work 1 or 2 days from home. So almost all of our employees already had a work laptop that they were set up on. And I believe we had a storm situation a few months prior where some of the other people were.
That's right. I remember that now.
They were given laptops. So I think that time when I set up everybody's laptops for that storm was the more challenging part. And the pandemic ended up having everything ready. So that was good. But I do think some people need a little bit more hand-holding when it comes to different tech situations. And we try to provide that.
That's me. 2 hands up. No. Tech help needed on a weekly
You're much savvier than you think.
Thank you. You're just being kind. But that makes me think about the continuous changes in an employee handbook that you have to work on. It's ever changing with the pandemic.
That is true. Thankfully, there's many articles right now out in our industry constantly reminding you to update your policies and procedures for remote work and the different scams out there that people could fall prey to. We do have a helpful system of training for people that they do about once a month or every other month, the online little training video just to remind them of the different threats out there and how to keep themselves secure. I do have to say the multi-factor authentication has been the most challenging part, with who gets a code for what and who has a push notification, but unfortunately that's the world we live in right now.
It means no time off for you, Sarah.
Right.
Means if we ever get to travel again to some beautiful sunny island, you'll have your phone available for that code that has to come in.
Always.
When I think about it, it would be great to be laying on a beach. I wouldn't care how many codes I had to authenticate. Just get us out of this situation, right? I know we did a lot of tracking for telemedicine visits, and I have talked to a lot of people about telemedicine. Do you think it's here to stay? Do you think it impacts our case management, injury management, handling?
I definitely think it's here to stay in some form or another. There's definitely situations where you need to visit a doctor in person that a telemedicine visit would not be the equivalent. But I think for especially small injuries or even just questions, I know a lot of people who have kids that find it really helpful that they can just get a quick telemedicine visit for their child for what is this rash or what's stuck where, who knows what kids get.
It's true.
But as far as injured workers, I definitely could see it being a little more challenging, just because there's so many legal loopholes you have to also get through and hoops to jump through. So I think in person is definitely going to still be the primary mode.
I thought a lot about it yesterday when we recorded our presentation webinar on the New York State Workers' Compensation Board updates. And I was thinking about the new medical treatment guidelines related to major depressive disorder, PTSD, and the lung diseases. And I thought, how will telemedicine ever work in this regard? You know, maybe a follow-up visit, but how do you do an initial visit during a pandemic if they're, you know, when you really need to assess the physical findings objectively and subjectively of a patient? So made me think of it yesterday, how it is, you know, maybe for a follow-up for an elbow injury might be appropriate, but I don't know how in the initial stages of work-related asthma or major depressive disorder, how that would look.
Definitely. Although I could see some patients dealing with mental illness would probably like having the option to see their psychiatrist or therapist just quickly for a telemedicine visit, or they might even be more likely to reach out for that help if they didn't have to leave their home. So in that regard, it might be a lot more helpful.
Yeah, that's true. It might actually improve compliance. You know, it's hard to say. It might definitely improve compliance. I know, having worked with you for many years, that you are a hands-on person. And in speaking to Glenn Feminella the other day, he gave a lot of antidotes on getting down in the nitty-gritty, into the weeds with employees. So I just wanted to say, it really is an attribute that you do that. You know, somebody's out or somebody needs help. Do you ever find any problems with that?
I guess the one problem I would find is that line between micromanaging or maybe jumping in where somebody maybe feels like they have a good enough handle on something, and they might read it not as helping, but as seeing them having done something wrong or not being able to handle it. So you have to be sure that you're asking somebody, do they really want your help? Or, you know, do they feel like they have it, or giving them a time frame to complete the task by, and then at that point saying, you know, this needs to be done by the end of the day. Let me help you with that. So
that's true. That's true. What do they call it? In business, it's micromanaging. At home, it's helicopter parenting.
Yes.
Helicopter operations.
Yes. Well, I do like to share with everybody, especially when they first start, that I have done every job at the company at some point or another. So I do think it's helpful in knowing what the challenges are to that position, and also the benefits, so that way I can better communicate with everybody what needs to be done and what I know they might need assistance with and when.
That's very true. You know, we've grown as a company from a small to mid-sized company. And, you know, I've never really thought about it. I know it innately in my being that you've done every job and every position, but it's really, I think it's speaks to the success of the company, is to have someone at the head of operations who literally has done every position and or built the operations for the position. So you really should pat yourself on the back for that one. If it wasn't COVID, I'd pat you in person.
So recently at a company meeting, we were discussing the IBM pledge and how similar our culture has been to that pledge. And I do feel like that's something that many companies should try and follow, just understanding the different situations their employees are in and being understanding during these very challenging times.
Can you speak a little bit to what the pledge is?
It's a number of different points, and the one that resonates the most with me is, being understanding of how someone might show up on a Zoom call, as, we all have different situations going on. I know there's many Zoom calls I'm in my slippers, and maybe once in a while I have to get up to get something and somebody notices that, and not to judge them on it. So situations like that.
It's really important, I think, in the culture of not just today during a pandemic, but I think the pandemic has taught us to be more accepting of others, a little less judgmental about what, say, is in your background. What is your home like? Your partner walks past you, your cat. I know we've had company meetings where pets jump on people's desks as they're, in the middle of the company meeting. So I think that pledge is really important to ensure that we all recognize each other as individuals.
I agree. I do think there's certain meetings that we hope people understand when it's okay to have your cat jump on the screen, especially with clients. You don't want that happening, but you hope that most of your clients are in a similar situation and they're understanding as well.
It's true. And thank goodness we can shut off the video component and the audio at any time.
That is
true. I was in a meeting the other day and an individual was in a car and unfortunately couldn't be in the video portion of the meeting. But again, it goes back to understanding the situations that we're all in. Definitely is not, as you said earlier, something we anticipated would be this long, and it is. But I think it's even more important that we continue to lead in a positive manner and try to find ways to motivate people. So I thank you for doing that, Sara Falco. It is a pleasure at Viscardi to have you. And I look forward to chatting with you at the next company meeting or in 15 minutes when we're solving a problem together.
Thank you, Joan. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Sara, very much.